All right, family. You live with the general, man. We up. That's right. Magi come out at in the twilight, with the moonlight. We is in the house. Today we're gonna be talking about from Africa to the Olmecs. Did ancient voyagers cross the Atlantic? We got to deal with that. Now, a lot of people, the only thing they know is slavery. Some white man drug you in a boat. If you wouldn't have got, if you didn't come that way, you ain't no other way for you to have got to America. And so, understanding that, to they understand that we have never accomplished anything, as far as of civilization, technology, any of that. So, people, some of these Negroes, that's how they think. That's how they think. You feel me? Make sure my mic. Okay. Yeah. Here it is. Let me get it over here. Let me turn it. Oh, I'm sorry, y'all. That's loud. What? There we go. There we go. Yeah. So if they don't, if the white man ain't do it for them, it didn't get done. And so we showing and proving that beyond if the ancient Egyptians wanted to come to America, they could have came to America. Okay. We've been through this now, and we're gonna go through it again. Because the documentation, the hypothesis was tested. It was tested. Now, as you can see, when you go into the most of these oceans, and all of them, they have currents in the ocean. In which the Africans knew the currents all over the planet. Because that's why you find African people in every part of the planet. Okay, and a lot of people want to act like they, boxed in. No, that's not the way it was. You see, the world today is a global system. They're networking from continent to continent, and this is not the first. And so, European people gonna make you believe that the world was not networking to like as nations are networking today until the European came along and showed people how to network, even though he was still talking about you will sell off the side of the damn planet in the 1600s. And so he was scared to even leave the shores of, the land mass. He was scared to leave the shores. They had all type of theories, dragons out there in the water, things of that nature. And so, it was the Africans that showed the European that you could sail to the other side of the ocean and that there was land over there. That's a fact. You can't believe nothing that these Europeans say. And but there's some Europeans that was courageous enough, to say some things to the contrary. And they look down on them Europeans and they don't know what they talking about, and a lot of people that say, oh, it's the Afrocentric, as if there's not 1,000 European scholars that didn't say the same thing. They happen to forget about that. They happen to forget about it to make, oh, this is an Afrocentric thing. Well, the damn Europeans were saying it before the damn black people were saying it. Okay, so but nobody mentions them. They just try to keep them hid. And a lot of them don't know that they there until these great African scholars show the people that Europeans have already come to these conclusions. Why? Because they're logical conclusions. They're logical conclusions. And so one of the great currents is the North Equatorial Current. The North Equatorial Current will uh, bring you from the West Coast to Africa. If you see it right there, you can see this the South Equatorial Current. You'll see that it'll bring you right up alongside South America, straight on into the Gulf of Mexico. So, I mean, what's stopping African people when the currents are already aligned to bring you directly over. And then you can take the North Equatorial right back to Africa. You can take it right back to Africa. So, so now you got Thor Heyerdahl, who was, I think he was from one of them, he was from one of them Scandinavian countries. And he tested it. He said, matter of fact, you can get I forget the name of the book, but I'll get it for you the next time I'm on, I'm online. But he had two attempts at trying to sail from Morocco Morocco to the Western Hemisphere. I think he was trying to get to the main. I don't know if he was trying to get to the mainland. He was trying to touch down on some landmass in the Western Hemisphere. And I believe he was trying to go to Barbados. I believe he was trying to go to Barbados. Now, he named the ship after the ancient Egyptian god Ra. He named him after the and Ra won, as we can see right here. Ra 1 didn't make it, but it damn near made it. Now, first and foremost, what is this Ra 1? It is a remake of an ancient Egyptian ship. Now, I want y'all to take it in mind. This is not the largest Egyptian ship. Okay, not by far. Okay, so he could have, but I believe these Europeans did the first one themselves. I don't believe I believe they created Ra 1 themselves, which was a very, very huge mistake. Because damn well that the Europeans don't know how to do nothing without no black people. You should have known that. So that was their first mistake. And so the Ra 1 did not make it. It almost made it, but you know, you can see right there it's flooding and all of that. And so whatever they was attempting to do, that was it. So it didn't make it. The second time around, he got some brothers. He got some brothers. He say, fuck that. I'm gonna do this right. And so I think the brothers was from Chad. And I believe that's the ship right there. I believe the brothers was from Chad, and they put the second rod two together. Black power to all my family out there. They put the second rod two together, and this one made it all the way across uh to Barbados. They took off. Now the first rod left Morocco, Safi, Safi, Morocco. And so that first rod took off in May 25th, 1969. May 25th, 1969, and it ended its journey. It didn't make it. July 18th, it ended the journey. So it made it that just show you right there. It almost did, it did a little bit over 3 weeks. It did a little bit over 3 weeks out there, you know, and but Rod 2 left the same city, Safi, Morocco, uh, May 17th, 1970. So it was almost the same time the next year. They took off again. They remade the boat, had the African brothers make it that second time, and they took off and they made it to Barbados. Okay. Reed boat. Now that's the one that sunk. But this is the one that actually made it. The Rod 2. They got it in a museum. I don't know where the museum. I don't know if it's in the museum where he come from. I think it's Norway, one of them, over there, Norway. But that's the one that made it. And so they put it in the museum so people could see it. Now, what's crazy now? So before I move forward, that proves that the hypothesis was put out there. Okay, could the ancient Egyptians make it to the Americas? And the answer is yes. Based on the technology that they had, they could make it to the Americas. Okay. And so that answers that, that they had the technology to do it, which they did. Now, what's crazy that a lot of people don't know, and listen, I was doing this research on the Olmecs. I've been doing it since, back, we talking about 2003, you know, right around that time, 2003, a little bit before that, but I got serious around 2003. That, started getting lectures together for the Olmecs. And so I noticed some, as I was doing my research, because what I would do, I would just go and look at all type of pictures in the Americas, and just to see what I could recognize. That's the first thing I do, is I got to get a visual of, Mexico, what's over there, what artifacts was left. I just start gathering, and then I get to analyze and to see what I see. Do I recognize anything? And so I was online, right? And I happened to see this was in Peru, I believe. And I seen this reed boat. And I say, wait a minute. That's if and now if you look at the fucking reed boat, that's the Ra 2 right there to the right. I say that's the same goddamn boat. That's the same goddamn boat. How did that boat get into the Americas like that? You know, how did that boat get into the Americas like that? Nah, somebody know, but you got the so-called Indian over there, or Peruvian, whatever you want to call him. He's saying that he took it. I don't see, and I don't know if I'm hearing that wrong. That they took it to Egypt, they took it to the Nile. Now you got these Mayanists out here that believe that the Mayan civilization is older than Egypt. Them peoples is full of shit, and they ain't nothing but occultists. They occultists, and they believe in that Atlantis, Lemurian, and all of that. And they believe that the Mayans was a part of the land of Mu, and a part of that, and so they conceive that the Mayan civilization is older than ancient Egypt, which is just not damn true. Okay, and I don't care what you say, and I don't care how many lies you conjure. When you look at the manifestation of what remains, there is no way you're gonna make me believe that a civilization like ancient Egypt, with monuments that people is so it is so mind blowing, to where they want to believe that aliens came down and built it. That, with that type of technology, it takes tens to hundreds of thousands of years to develop that, and you ain't got nothing close to it in the landmass that would make people believe that you had a head start on civilization before these people. That just don't make no sense to me, that people could conceive that. Ain't no damn way you gonna make me believe the Mayans that didn't even cut stone. They wasn't even masons. You know what I'm saying? They had some stone on, but it wasn't cut. It wasn't cut like that. The Egyptians were masons. They used stone. They cut stone. They had tools to cut stone, that, blocks that weighed hundreds of tons. And they did it for 3,000 years consistently. See, that's the thing about ancient Egypt above all other civil. They might have a megalithic structure there. They might have two. But what they don't have is 3,000 years of consistently creating megalithic structures. That's the only civilization in ancient. You can't even find one that did it for 1,000. You can't even find it because even Rome didn't do it for 1,000 years. Yeah, they got going for a minute, but it wasn't 1,000 consecutive years that they built megaliths. No, they didn't. It wasn't even a consistent 1,000 years. You can't. The Greeks didn't do it. They had about 300 years, and then they tapped out. So when you talking about, from the beginning, building pyramids in the third dynasty, all the way, megalithic structures, all the way, damn near to the AD period, 3,000 consistent years of megalithic building. No other civilization on earth had done. So how would I believe that any other civilization is older than ancient Egypt? And I'm not saying Egypt was the pinnacle of the Nile Valley civilization. So when I say Egypt, I speak of Nubia, I speak of the interior all the way down to the beginning of the Nile. So Egypt was the pinnacle of the Nile Valley civilization. So it includes all the beginning and all, however many hundreds of thousands of years that, the civilization existed at the beginning, and then it worked its way down until it got all the way down at the end of the Nile, and that's where it had reached the pinnacle, which they call Egypt today. So ain't no damn Maya, no damn Greece, no Rome, no Sumeria, no India, none of that. None of that. Got no track where I don't want to hear no dialogue. I don't want you to try to talk me into this shit. Just show me the evidence. I just want to see the, and if we can go for temple, we can go pyramid for pyramid, we can go megalithic structure, statue for statue. I don't want to hear no dialogue. Let this shit speak for itself. And that's what I want. I don't want, this is show and tell. And you can't show up to show and tell with nothing to show. Don't try to talk. I don't want to talk. Just show me the evidence. And so what I saw here was the fact this is the same boat, same technique. Now, which one came first? Now, what's crazy, the Egyptians, man, even show they deities on boats. That's how deep this shit go with ancient Egypt. Even when you look up in the tops of the damn temples and you look at you see the cosmological origins of Egypt, they even saying that the gods were sailing on ships. You don't see no culture, no other culture do you see this. That just show you how connected to the water the ancient Egyptians were. Even the gods were sailing on ships. They buried, Khufu had a ship buried next to his pyramid. They believed that they would take to these arcs, these magnificent arcs, and sail up the Nile into the celestial Nile, which was the Milky Way, and to be one with the great holy mother and father Osiris and Isis in the constellation of Orion, which is in the southern hemisphere, the celestial southern hemisphere. You looking to the south. You looking towards the beginning of the Nile, which is in the interior of Africa. You see? And so when you looking at all these different ships that the Egyptians got, man, listen and look at this one barge. Do you see this is a barge. This ain't even a ship. This is a barge. They was able to transport 2 obelisks on this barge. And each one of these obelisks weigh 700 tons. You barely can show me a little raft. You could barely. So when you talk about the damn boat that Thor Heyerdahl sailed, from Africa to Barbados, that ain't got shit on this. That ain't got shit on this. This was a barge where they sell megalithic. And what's crazy, this was Hatshepsut's barge. Nah, what's crazy, She was about to raise another obelisk. It's down in Aswan. It's down in Aswan. This would have been the largest obelisk ever raised. But it had a crack in it, and because based on my eye, you cannot raise nothing like that. If it got a crack in it, you can't raise it because it'll snap. It could kill people. It could break and kill people. So they had to leave it in the quarry, but they had cut it out. And if they would have cut that obelisk all the way out, it would have been the largest single monolith. It would have been this largest single monolith, meaning it was cut from one piece of rock. It would have been like 1,200 tons. It would have been 1,200 tons. It would have been the largest monolith. So imagine what type of damn ship, it probably would have had to been bigger than this one. So they had ships that were far bigger than the one that made it. Okay, so and other types of they had different types of ships, and I had to tap into it at a different time, where they actually developed out of the reed, but the reed was still common though, but they developed out of the reed into the wood boats, and we had to get into it at a different time. But the question was, from Africa to the Olmecs, did ancient voyagers cross the Atlantic? And beyond any doubt, beyond any doubt, the Africans came across at a very early stage that they came across and the thing is we keep acting like shit that black people just came over during the damn Atlantic slave trade. Our people been coming across. They mastered the seas. That's why we got to quit. They mastered the seas, the oceans. They mastered them. They knew all the currents. They not only that was really, how they mastered the cosmology because they mastered the different quadrants of the planet. And as they mastered the planet, they also mastered the stars in every quadrant on the planet. And that's why they became master astronomers beyond anybody that can sit in one area. You cannot master and you just sitting. Yeah, you can master that area that's above you. You know what I'm saying? But when you go, if you in the north, you can't see stars in the south. You can't see stars if you so far, you got certain stars that you can't see unless you drop below the equator. You ain't gonna see them. You have to drop, and you got stars in the north that you won't see, and you got some that's right there where you can see, but they'll be low. They won't be where you won't be able to see them in their grandeur. Some of the some of them you can see like Sirius. You can see Sirius, but Sirius is in the south. It's in the south. Orion is in the south. So, it's like right on the cusp. Because everything on the planet, you got the celestial equator. You got the celestial equator in the sky. And so and there's certain stars and cut, they cut them off in different quadrants and so you got the south uh southwest, the southeast quadrant, and you got certain stars and constellations. And so yeah, you might be able to see Orion and you might be able to see Sirius and certain times of the year, but they'll be low. You know what I'm saying? You go down south. Shit, you go down south and you go, they'd be hanging in the sky. You'll see them in their glory, and that's crazy because that Milky Way is the goddess knew. And so they knew that that was the center of the damn universe. I mean, the galaxy is the center of the galaxy. That's very important when you understand in the South. You see, when you understand in the celestial South, Yeah. Yeah, you got to. So that, but that's another topic, but I just wanted, but the boats, that's also connected when you talk about the Pharaoh and he's selling, he's selling up to the Nile and the celestial Nile is really connected. In their spirituality is connected, so as you sail up the Nile, you go into the highlands of Africa and you keep going up into the Milky Way. Yeah, and that's the path that Ra is taking, and you can see him sailing up, into the great mother Nut, which all the constellations, she is the Milky Way. Yeah, she is the Milky, but that's south. That's south. You will see that. But anyway, family, we just getting started. I'm a mad guy, man. I know it's late, but yeah, y'all stay up to go to the club. But anyway, I'm about to come right back. So join the general. Appreciate y'all, man. Click that link, man. We got some fire over there at Patreon. Don't you dare miss it, cause I'm gonna be doing some hour lectures over there. So I ain't gonna stop. So y'all better get over there and get that work. I see y'all in a minute. Black Pop.